Recording. Hi folks, I'm Brian Wiener. I'm with Lauren Morgan and Holly Hamill. We are the Supernova Society. This is ideal number 6, live without expectation. So, what is an expectation? So an expectation is defined as believing that something is going to happen or believing that something should be a certain way. An example of an expectation is a belief that you will be getting promoted or that you deserve that promotion. Another example would be that you should behave in a certain manner around certain people or in certain areas of society. Why is this important to live without expectation? Well, I'm reminded of ideal number 1 that we shared with you a few weeks ago, being a beginner, right? Now, live without expectation crosses most of our ideals, but in particular, being a beginner rang out to me as the one that really tied in here. Because it's about having that open mind, having that empty mind, and having that open heart to allow all things and all possibilities. And when we allow all possibilities and all of that, it allows for us to accept things as they are versus how we want them to be. Loma?
Definitely, Brian. Finding that. So expectation is also the root of all disappointment, which is a pretty common quote that we hear. If we're always expecting for things to go just one way and there's an infinite number of ways for them to go, then we're going to continually be disappointed. So a lot of people like to try and kind of do a life hack here and say, if you don't have any expectations, then you won't have any disappointments. And yes, that's totally true. And I've totally jumped aboard that train, a couple years ago and really appreciated that. But in the same way, expectations and standards should not be confused. So dropping all your expectations does not mean dropping all of your standards. And to give kind of an example here, there's a huge difference between me expecting my partner to bring me flowers every day he comes home from work versus I expect my partner to treat me kindly and clean up after himself in the house and things like that. These are standards of living that we need to establish so that we make sure that we're being treated correctly. But then we can also have these expectations that if they don't happen, then we just get hung up and distracted by disappointment that doesn't really matter. Does my partner love me? Yes. Whether or not he brings me flowers, I shouldn't be expecting flowers to be the only way that I accept his love. And this kind of also gets into expectations versus standards and accepting all outcomes, being okay with any outcome that might happen, setting forward on something and, being okay if it doesn't work out the first time, if you have to try again. Also, if someone refuses to meet your standards, you have to be okay with the outcome of them not staying in your life for very long. What about you, Holly?
I agree completely. When we have expectations, we can actually remove all types of possibilities that might be coming our way. We could actually be creating a smaller view of what's possible. For example, take a father and son. The father has inherited a small family business from his father, and he expects to pass it along to his son because it's an honest living and that's just what we do. This business takes a lot of time and yields a little profit, but that's how they've done it for generations. The son decides to go against his father's expectations and creates a different business that is much more profitable and affords him more family time with his partner and young children and also his parents. It benefits everyone. And as a result of defying his father's expectations, he's created a better quality of life, not only for his family, but those that come after him. Being limited by expectations and attachment to something will keep your window of opportunity small. But when we live without expectation, not only are we not disappointed, but it leaves a lot of room for pure surprise and delight for even better outcomes.
So, living without expectation isn't exactly possible without any expectations whatsoever. But the real key to it is actually minimizing your expectation and having good expectation management. I'll tell you a little story. I've been going to Burning Man for a long time. You guys know that. You've heard that probably before. And the first time I was ever placed, I was kind of in the middle and kind of out a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is a great spot. And every day I came there, it was home to me. And The next year, they placed me a little closer to center. And every year after that, I got closer till I was right around center camp, which is like the center hub of everything. And then I joined a new camp, in maybe 5, 6 years in, I joined a new camp. And that camp was on the edge of the playa. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be in the middle of nowhere. What I didn't know is that it would really broaden my horizons. And I mean that quite literally, because we were on the edge of the playa, which allowed us to see these beautiful sunsets and all of the action that's happening out there. And so instead of having this like center location where other action is happening, I had this whole beautiful vista. And so it allowed me to open and expand my horizons, like quite literally. And so this good management now allows me to look forward and notice where and what my expectations are. So like, it's important for me to do that, because then I can understand what it is that I'm expecting, why I'm expecting it, and why that's important to me. And if it's really important to me, it's not really just like as Loma said earlier, it's not just an expectation, but it's actually a standard. And there is a difference between those two. It's important that we understand that. And if it is a standard, it's important that we communicate that standard to the other people in our lives so they can actually meet that, because it's not actually just a standard, it's also becomes a boundary at that point. Oh, you had some thoughts on that, didn't you?
Exactly. To circle back, having underlying expectations, especially those that we don't communicate to the recipient, weaves a tangled web of resentment and unspoken conditionals to a relationship. So I want to reiterate here that communicating your standards is the key element. If the standard is stated before the relationship or agreement is established, it gives both parties, the right of refusal to participate. When standards are clearly established and communicated, we set not only ourselves but others up for success. And this goes hand in hand with the philosophy of plan for the worst, but hope for the best.
You know, I'm also reminded just of how many relationships that we've all been in where their partner had a test for us and we didn't even know it was a test because it was never clearly communicated. Has that happened to everybody else? I know it's happened to me, right? And I've done it. I've done it to other people too, right? Not fair. And you know, what the best thing that we can possibly do here is really detach from outcomes as much as possible. Like allow ourselves to be open, detached from whatever happens as much as we possibly can be. And it allows the universe to delight and surprise us over and over again. And then, you know, that requires something that I know I'm personally not very good at, which is to surrender. Lama?
Yeah, definitely. Surrendering is a huge part of this. And it's also arguably the most difficult part of it. An example of how I've kind of surrendered to living without expectation in my own life was with my relationship with my mother. It has been very complicated since birth, and just like everything going on between us. And I was really, really hyper focused on the fact that she didn't love me the way that I needed her to love me. And she was not giving me love the way that I wanted her to give me love. And so I had all of these expectations of how a mother should love the daughter, and, you know, just all these things I'd created in my head. And it caused a huge rift between us. That wasn't the only thing that caused a rift, but there were, you know, that was a huge part of the rift that survived into my adulthood with her. And it took me really surrendering to the idea of like, my mother is her own person and she's going to love me the way that she can, the way that she knows how. And I need to drop my expectations if I'm ever going to be able to accept and experience that love that she's trying to give me. Even if it's not coming the way I'm expecting, it's still coming. And I would rather have that than absolutely no love whatsoever from her, because she is trying to give it. So with surrendering, this is, again, it's keeping you open to all the possibilities. Stay open to these possibilities. Things come to you in ways that you least expect. If you're only looking for something one way and it doesn't come that one way, you are blocking yourself from all the other different ways that it could be coming to you. And again, this kind of gets into cultivating comfort in uncertainty. When we're uncertain about things, that's also when we have the most possibility in front of us. It's like the quantum field right in front of us, right there. Any, you know, like the particle has not chosen where it is yet. And so finding a comfort in that uncertainty instead of getting really freaked out by uncertainty and running the other way.
You know, it's almost, you know, it's almost we should take delight in uncertainty, because humans need a certain amount of uncertainty in order to be happy. Like if everything is predictable, it becomes boring and we start creating our own chaos in that case. So allowing just the chaos that naturally exists and embracing that, like, we'll be much happier in the long run.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to leave you guys with this quote from Stephen Hawking. Just a little background in case you're not certain of how Stephen Hawking ended up needing a chair and speech assistance, but he had Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And he found out about this in his 20s when he started losing motor coordination in his last year at Oxford in graduate school. So for him, expectations were huge. He says, "My expectations were reduced to 0 when I was 21. Everything since then has been a bonus."
Damn.
It's powerful. And look at all the things that he accomplished, having just let go,
Yeah.
surrendered the expectations.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
See you next week.
See you next week.